Welcome, everybody, to today's live webinar, Building Momentum in 2026, Financial and Operational Methods for Modern Consultancies. I hope everyone out there managed to enjoy some time off over the holidays, but we are back in action at Projectworks. The new year has begun, and we are excited for 2026. We'll dive into it to go over who are we today? Who is speaking today on this webinar? I am Alison. I'm the UK market lead at Projectworks. And if you aren't familiar with Projectworks already, we power small and medium-sized consultancies to grow faster and more profitably through access to enterprise-grade product, services, and methodology. You might be most familiar with our professional services automation platform, which brings together time tracking, resourcing, invoicing, and reporting into one system for small and medium-sized consultancies. And Rob, what about Motherboard?
So I am founder and director of Motherboard. We automate also small to medium businesses. We are actually starting to move more into the enterprise space, but basically automating, consulting, and doing sort of the full onboarding training of helping businesses automate their processes and work more efficiently.
Brilliant. Thank you. So why are we here today? Well, as I said, it's a new year and pressure is rising for consultancies everywhere in 2026. Expectations for operational efficiency have never been higher, and people are constantly being asked to do more with less time, with less budget. So success in 2026, it's not going to be about the consultancies who are just winning the projects, but it's really going to be about the ones who are forecasting it, resourcing it, and delivering it profitably without the chaos. So today's session is, our goal of it is to inspire you with practical advice and customer stories about how modern consultancies are growing profitably. We've split today into three parts. So I'm going to be handing over to Rob soon to start us off with a presentation about resourcing for 2026 and beyond. I'll take back over then and take you through some real consulting stories across three growth phases. And then we'll have some time for a live Q&A at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing and hand over to Rob.
Thank you, Alison. Let me see if this is going to work as expected. You see my screen?
Yep, coming through.
Amazing. Okay, so there's a lot of methods and controls that CFOs have to juggle and get their arms around. But one of the things two things that I want to speak about today are around resource management and time tracking. And one statistic that I read is ineffective resource planning costs UK companies 10 to 20% of their payroll every year, which is significant if you look at it from a GDP perspective, and obviously something that we want to try and reduce as much as possible. So our role is dealing with a lot of clients across a lot of different verticals. And what we've noticed over the years of doing this is when we speak to CFOs, finance directors, etc., there are a bunch of things that they struggle with. And I think this touches on what those methods and controls are that they need to be all over and understand. And some of those things are forecast accuracy. So a lot of CFOs don't trust and lack the insights into what their numbers are, and cash flow is a lot of the times a guess. So like that's obviously they're always saying our forecasts are not accurate. We're obviously seeing margin erosion project by project. So if things are discovered too late and aren't fixed, it's estimated that 5 to 8% of margin is lost per project because of not having this visibility. And then obviously costs as well. So things like scope creep, having to rework stuff, admin tasks. So we'll touch on that a little bit later. But if that's all invisible during the actual implementation and execution during a project, that can be up to £1,200 to £2,000 per employee per year. I think all of these stats are slightly underestimated and underreported. So I think these are all super conservative, if I'm honest. And then another one is obviously team retention and burnout. So if you don't have the ability to see who's working on what and when, and plan that resource, then people get burnt out and end up resigning, which obviously then comes with its own costs, which are also difficult to report on, because what is the cost of replacing someone? The ramp up period, depending what industry you're in, etc. It's all pretty variable, but there is a significant cost, not only from a time perspective, but also from a revenue perspective around that. So all in all those four pillars sort of happen because CFOs lack real-time visibility across all of these different metrics. So what we've learned is, again, like margins aren't matching the revenue. Why is the money in the bank that we have not matching what we're reporting? I don't know where my money's going, and why are my forecasts always wrong? And the insights and root cause around that is not in the finance systems. Most companies have that down pat, and they're doing it really well. What we found is that it's more in the operational data tied into that financial data and having those in siloed tiers. So an example, finance teams are managing budgets, the project teams are managing timelines and scope, and operations teams are managing headcount. But connecting all of those three things is where a lot of the struggles and difficulty come in. So those three different disconnected systems from finance, they're tracking revenue, they are seeing where budget is allocated, they're obviously highly interested in P&L, but a lot of the time lack that operational context and insight. On the project management side, their main goal is to make sure timelines don't slip, that scope creep doesn't enter the project, and that delivery happens on time. A lot of the time, they don't have cost visibility or profitability visibility on each project. And then the operations HR piece is obviously the headcounts and resourcing and who's being allocated to what, who's underutilized, who's overutilized. But from that perspective, there's no profitability tied to it. What is the cost of my resource? Not only from replacements if someone leaves, but also on the day-to-day in every project that you work on. So there's two pieces to the puzzle, and these are the two that I think from our side, we see a lot of in the real world. And one of those is accurate resource planning. So there's a lot of tools out there where they say that they do this really well. Having done what we've done for so long, it is very difficult to find a solution that can accurately do resource planning and management into the future. And then the other side of that coin is time tracking and real-time time tracking. Now, I think there's a lot of confusion or lumping those two into the same basket. Resource planning is that future forward-looking outlook. So who's going to be working on what next week, next month? How many projects can they take on in 3 months' time? Do I need additional headcounts in certain times of the year? So it's very forward-looking, whereas time tracking is, this has happened. I have done this work. I'm tracking my time. And using both of those, we can give a very accurate picture of planned versus actuals. Now, why does that matter? Forecasting is great, but like we've seen, CFOs can a lot of the time say, my forecasts aren't accurate. And without the time tracking piece, you will never be able to be accurate with that. So the first consequence is forecasting. So estimates are based on gut feel. There's no actual data to back it up. We hear a lot of the times, well, this type of project typically costs us 800 hours, so the next one will probably be the same. The problem comes in when that project doesn't take 800 hours and it takes 950, and you've already gone over that, and it's too late to then pivot and go back to the client. So that is a big consequence of not being able to forecast accurately. You mentioned your proposal. So future proposals, if you don't have that data, you can be inaccurate with that as well. The second one is margin leaks. So things like scope creep. If you can't see when and where that's happening, that's obviously a big uh, reason that margin gets eroded within projects. And what we tend to find is people on the ground and the project team will hide rework and admin time. So being able to catch that when they're tracking time is obviously really important. And in terms of costs, we did a quick calculation that if 15 minutes per day times 20 people on the team gives you roughly 60K lost annually in revenue. So again, it's like you've 5 to 8% of margin across the UK per project based on those margin leaks. And then again, over the team burnout, over allocation, if you can't see that, you can't manage it. And if nobody is actively trying to resolve that, and it isn't an overnight fix by all means, if you need resource, you have to hire and go through the process. But at least you can move the needle and make those sorts of decisions if you have that visibility. So all of these little things, seemingly in isolation, like they don't look like they bigger problems, but that disconnect across all three compounds into big financial surprises. And these typically raise their heads towards the end of the month, end of financial year. All of a sudden, we need to scurry to find out what's happened and why, which is obviously too late. So some things, and from a personal perspective. So we, as you know, Alison, have implemented Projectworks, and some of the things that I wanted to give as examples of what we've noticed by implementing Projectworks and some of the benefits that we've seen by getting these things right. And before I dive in, I'll say a lot of companies will be doing some of this well. Some people might not be doing any of it, but it's really getting all of it integrated to get the full benefits of it. So what we've seen is margin recovery. So we basically discovered 18% of our billable time was untracked. And because of that, we managed to recover, like I'd say, increase 80K in revenue in a single quarter. And our forecast accuracy is up by 30%, again, because we now have access to real data. Another example of early intervention is a project that we were working on was 40% over budget really early on in the project. Our delivery manager spotted that in our dashboard, and we reallocated resource. We moved some stuff around. We went back to the client and negotiated a change request, and essentially ensured that it wasn't too late to recover or save that margin. Another example is retaining talent and resourcing. So being able to see when someone is over allocated, the manager of the team and our delivery manager are able to, and this is not a once-off thing, this happens regularly on a weekly basis, just rebalancing workload and doing that proactively to make sure that the team is equally balanced in terms of workload. So we had 2 people where this was an issue with. We managed to resolve it, and both of them are still with us and have been promoted this year. And we estimate replacement costs, if they had left, to be around 120K, which is significant. And then the final one is our finance departments are able to report to the leadership team what is our cash flow, which is huge, especially for smaller to medium companies. Cash is king. Everyone's heard that before. So being able to accurately report on that has been invaluable to us. So again, no surprises at end of year, end of financial year, etc. And none of it's magic. Like it's not an overnight fix, but it is just tracking all of these things accurately, taking the time to actually look at it, make decisions on that, and having the discipline to make sure that we have that control over all the projects and the ways that we work within them. So getting to the end of it, the 5 operational levers that CFOs need to pull or can pull. Step 1 is capture operational reality. So what is the current as is status? Are we doing accurate daily time tracking? What is our billable versus non-billable by project, by person? And then that obviously leads to no more guessing of where time is going and what people are spending that time on. We need to surface our margin reality. So real-time project P&L, not after the fact, so we can make changes and pivot as and when we need to before it becomes a huge issue. So CFO outcomes, you're seeing a margin drift in week 2, not week 10. So being able to catch those things early. And in step 3, identify resource inefficiency. So it's not just over allocation, it's underutilization as well. So being able to see that by project, by person, by roles within the business. And obviously not only have people overburdened, but people who have capacity be able to also pick up the slack. Step 4, obviously enable early intervention. So cost variance, being able to report on that, and cost performance analytics. So again, act before problems become disasters. And then step 5, drive strategic reallocation. So where do we need to move capacity? Where do we need to reassign people to help out where needs be, or give people more work where they do have that capacity? And the more efficient we can be at that, obviously, the more profitable and the higher margins that we can drive. So these 5 steps solve a lot of the CFO's pain points. I'm not saying this is all encompassing, but from what we've seen working with, as I say, a lot of industries, a lot of people at all levels of all businesses, this is what we have. It's a conversation that we have regularly. And we now have, through Projectworks, a way that we can really solve these real world problems. That's my whole story. There's my contact details. Feel free to follow us on socials. If you need to get in touch, my email is there. I'm happy to have a discussion, chat with people about some of these. If you are having any of these problems or if any of this resonates, please feel free to get in touch.
That was great. Thank you so much, Rob. That was an amazing presentation. I think the level of detail on the processes that really move the needle, I think, for consultancies when it comes down to the hard numbers of percentages and profit margin. It's really just great to see it laid out like that. And of course, you're not just a Projectworks partner, but you're a Projectworks customer. So I'm really glad that you got to share your own experiences and story there with Projectworks. I find it really
On that,
fascinating. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, being a customer of Projectworks, us as a business, like I say, this is a conversation we have a lot, and we've been looking to partner with someone. Probably a year, maybe a year and a half, it took us to find the right tool, the right company to partner with, and Projectworks is it. So we are very happy and thrilled to have partnered with you and work closely with you on helping other companies see the outcomes that we've seen.
Yes, that's amazing. Same here. Can only echo it from our side as well. Motherboard are a great partner. We love doing, especially webinars like this, being able to host together is great. I love what you also touched on with when it comes to the team culture of having the right systems in place. When it comes to like their capacity and utilization rates and making sure they're not over allocated and how negatively that can impact I think the team to the point where they're like experiencing burnout or they end up leaving the company. And yeah, I think that's a great win that maybe is overlooked a little bit when it comes to systems like these, but it is hugely impactful to be able to retain talent.
Yeah, and we have scaled a lot in 2025, and it has been a challenge from a capacity perspective. But I think just going through the recruitment process and communicating with the team and then being able to see that we're trying to make it better goes a long way.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Hmm. Fantastic. Well, I will have some more customer stories to share. Now that it's back handed over to me. So yes, thank you very much, Rob. And just for anyone who's wondering as well, we will share the recording of today's session afterwards. So if anyone wants to go back over Rob's presentation and go back over the detail that was in it, we will share that in the recording. So now I'm going to build on Rob's presentation a bit more by bringing out in some stories of real life consultancies. And I'm going to break it down across three phases of growth. So I've based my presentation on this asset that we've produced at Projectworks called the Growth Cheat Sheet. It was produced by our CEO, Mark, who has led a consultancy in the past, in a past life. And it's a really great playbook of processes, structures, strategies for growing consultancies that people can use to, yeah, understand where they're at when they're starting out through to more mature, a mature phase of growth. So I will just also say that at Projectworks, we have over 145, sorry, years of collective experience in the consulting and services industry. Everything from leadership and founders to finance and sales. We have a lot of internal knowledge that we use to base presentations like this or assets like the growth cheat sheet. So yeah, that's kind of where this presentation is born out of, is putting all that learning and all that knowledge and experience to paper. And using this methodology, that kind of cheat sheet of processes and structure, we have identified these three phases of maturity for consultancies. So we have phase one, this covers about the early origin story of a consultancy and the early days of the new business. It's estimated, we estimate that it's about 0 to 3.5 million of revenue generation. Employee count, again, estimates around 1 to 25 team size. And the main focuses at this point is really going to be about getting the firm up and running and getting your initial clients and case studies and using those to kind of drive marketing and drive more sales. But the challenge that you're going to experience as a consultancy at this phase is really going to be based around your founders' bandwidth. They're likely going to be doing a bit of everything at this point. They are the main driver of success at this phase, but it is going to be a challenge later on when their time is going to be maxed out. So something to be aware of in phase one. Phase two then is about revenue range is about 3.5 to 20 million. And at this point, the business has got like a solid foundation and it's got the wheels well greased. And so it's ready to experience a lot of growth during this phase. But it is a very interesting phase, and I'll share that when I go through it in more detail. But what you're going to really want to focus on at this point as a consultancy is firm differentiation and also proving repeatable growth and services. The challenge most consultancies experience at this phase is the bandwidth of their sales and delivery direct reports, as well as the founder. But you'll be building out a team that's going to relieve some of that. But as you become closer to phase three, even their bandwidth is going to start to be stretched a bit as well. And then we have phase three. So at this point, you're actually quite a mature business and you're turning over quite a bit of revenue. This is an estimated revenue range of 20 to 100 million and estimated employee count of about 120 to 500 employees. And at this point, you are really looking at building market leadership. And a key focus is going to be creating a decentralized organization. So the challenge that most consultancies at this phase run into is that they don't have a scalable leadership structure. And decentralizing the organization is going to be the key way to succeed in phase three and reach that, really, really great level of success. So I want to get into the phases a bit deeper. So we'll dive into phase one a bit more, as I want to talk about the financial and operational setup for each phase that's going to hopefully lead to success and growth. So let me see now. When it comes to, yes, so back office hiring, that's where we are. We're back office hiring setup. At this point, you're going to be looking at outsourcing quite a bit, mostly the accounting and bookkeeping side of the business. But you might want to also retain a financial controller, fractional financial controller, or one full-time junior financial controller, like an assistant, to help with the running the finance side of the business. But again, at this point, your founder is going to be very busy doing a lot of this work as well. So that the task of chasing late paying invoices might come down to the founder or client lead as well. Tech stack wise, you're probably looking at a setup like this. You'll have your accounting software like Xero or QuickBooks and a lightweight CRM such as HubSpot. And then you'll also be looking at having a professional service automation platform, but at an entry level plan like a build plan on Projectworks. So, as I previously mentioned, success at this phase is really going to depend on your founder. So, the company needs to be founder led and managed at this phase. It's the founder's expertise and reputation that's going to launch the firm and drive its growth. But this will also be something that could become a bottleneck down the line. So, something to be aware of as you outgrow this phase is that your founder's capacity might become a bottleneck. So for this phase of growth, the first phase, I want to tell you about a life sciences consultancy called Zendaya. They are a global product development and regulatory consultancy that supports biotechnology and pharmaceutical companies to bring new therapies to market. And in 2020, when they were around 20 people, their new managing director and CFO, Charles Camp, came aboard to try to scale the business. However, they were at the time using a patchwork of systems, including spreadsheets that were holding them back. And staffing was time consuming, it was manual, and they lacked the financial insight that was going to help them make the right strategic decisions and help grow the team. So they set out to find a new financial and operational system that would help them to grow. And using Projectworks, they managed to replace five disconnected systems and instead have a professional services automation that helped them to do smarter resourcing. It had time and expenses in one place. It gave them that financial insight that they were going to need to grow, and it massively streamlined their operations. And since using Projectworks, they have gone from that team of 20 to over 65 people. So about 168% growth there from um, Zendaya. And that kind of places them firmly into phase two. So phase two, then, I want to talk about the financial and operational setup for a phase two consultancy. Back office wise, you're looking at retaining a fractional CFO. You're really maturing at this point. You're going to want more sophisticated help when it comes to your financial setup. So this is where you might look at taking on a expert like a fractional CFO. Similarly, for your operations, it's going to be important to have more sophisticated operations as you continue to scale. And you might want to get a fractional COO for this as well, someone who's a real expert in operations. You'll continue to outsource your accounting and back office operations. And as your team grows, you'll also want to look at getting an HR agency as well. Now, this might sound like a lot of outsourced help, but this is actually something that's really going to be beneficial during this phase because it's that kind of interim period of you need this help, you need this sophistication, you need the setup, but you may want to hold off getting a big full in-house team for now. But you will, as you approach phase three, that's the kind of conversation you'll start to have is, okay, when are we going to start maybe bringing some of these outsourced agencies that help and building an in-house team? Your tech stack is very similar. It doesn't look too different to phase one, but you'll be looking at a more scalable CRM system and a marketing automation platform. Maybe it's Salesforce, maybe it's still HubSpot, but you're building on the plans as well. Similarly, with your professional services automation, your project intelligence, you might be building up from a build plan to a scale plan on Projectworks. And then success in this phase is really going to be driven by not just your founder, but also the leadership team you put in place. So it's really important in phase two that you start to build out a people that you can trust across your different functions like sales and marketing, delivery, practice leads, finance and HR, because they're going to be really hands-on in the business and they're going to be what will relieve the founder's capacity to drive more strategic growth. So they're very important. And an example then, a great story of a customer, a consultancy who is in phase two is an Australian software services firm called BDNA. They're harnessing technology to make real world impact on Australia's public safety, education, and health. And they came to Projectworks at around 60 employees. They'd already grown from two co-founders to about 60. And putting them firmly already in phase two, but they were really starting to see their financial and operations systems begin to crack, and the fragmentation of the systems were getting in the way of their mission, which is really, really important to them. So they set about looking for a new project software, and they had four non-negotiables with that. They wanted to replace the data doubt with clear project intelligence. They wanted the insight that was going to help them grow and make the right decisions going forward. They were also wanted to reduce manual processes, and they wanted to give with that they wanted to give more time to their team to work on meaningful work. And they also wanted a platform that was ready to scale. They were very adamant that when they were coming aboard a new project software, they didn't want to set it up, go through all that work, and then have it, have to look for something else in 12 months' time. They wanted to move everybody across and set it up in a way that they'd be able to continue to grow for many years using it. And so since moving to Projectworks 3 years ago, then they have had great growth, 60% company growth in 3 years, and they've been using Projectworks to manage over 270 projects. Or they've tracked 351,000 billable hours in the platform, and yes, we're grown from 60 to over 100 employees. And culturally, it's been great for the team as well. I think, yeah, as I say, as we talked about, Rob, it is very important with culture to have the right systems in place. And as you can see from their co-founder and chief technology officer, Marty, he talks about how 2 weeks after switching to Projectworks timesheets, they already had 90% adoption, and people could instantly see that it was saving them time. So a big win for the team there as well. And finally, to finish us off, is just to touch on phase three as well. Um, phase three, sorry, as I previously mentioned, this is you're a really mature company at this point. You've really got the right foundations in place. You're turning over a lot of revenue, and at this point, yes, you will start to think about your back office setup and whether and evaluating whether you're going to continue outsourcing things like accounting and operations. That's going to keep you scaling. Or it might actually be time to bring some of those teams in-house, to bring finance and operations in-house instead. Tech stack wise, there's a wide range of accounting software that you can use, more enterprise accounting software, or you could stick with something like QuickBooks and Xero. Your CRM and marketing automation, you're probably going to be on the bigger plans for this on Salesforce or HubSpot, and your professional service automation plan will grow as well to something like Unleash on Projectworks. But like I said, to succeed in this phase, it's really about decentralizing your organization. So your executive team and your leadership team, they're going to be really stretched as the team size grows. At this point, you really need to look at freeing up more of their time. And a great way to do this is to maybe hire or assign general managers. And you could split these by geographical region, by client verticals, or even by practice areas. And it's just going to, again, free up the leadership's capacity to have things like one-to-ones, there's only so much time of the day that you can have to spend on direct reports. So general managers are a great way to kind of enter this new phase of growth. And an example of a phase three consultancy then is an Australian infrastructure consultancy called MBB. They are a high growth independency advisory business that specializes in bringing innovative solutions and complex infrastructure challenges. So similarly to to BDNA, MBB, their team had grown a lot, but it was showing a lot of strain on the incumbent management systems. So they set about looking for a new system that was going to help them reduce that strain and bring them into a new phase of growth. So, like BDNA, the operations teams had identified four things they wanted their new system to do. They wanted utilization data that everyone could trust. This was the metric at MBB, and they wanted live utilization data for the CFO to use to make decisions. They wanted the important things done well. It had to do all of the same things like resourcing, time tracking, leave management, and forecasting, but better than their previous software. They didn't want to sacrifice anything when they were moving to a new system. They also wanted a software that scales. So MBB work on a variety of types of projects, some quite small, but then others that are very big and complex. So they wanted a system that could be adjusted to the project size and could do kind of any kind of project size. And they wanted to keep smart people busy. So not doing boring admin, not doing, yeah, like they wanted their smart people, their consultants and their experts to work on cool and exciting projects, not spending time doing admin and kind of boring things like that. And I think that's another part that's really interesting for a consultancy culture is having your smart, intelligent people working on things that have impact and not, just doing manual work. So after trialing a few products as well, I think they had four options they were looking at. They decided to go with Projectworks and have experienced a lot of growth in 3 years. They moved from a 45 person business to over 170. So about 277% growth with MBB. And with Projectworks, they've managed over 250 projects and tracked over almost 1 million billable hours using Projectworks, which is amazing. So there you kind of have it. That was three examples of growing consultancies across three growth phases. And if you liked hearing about the growth phases, I do recommend downloading the growth cheat sheet. It's really detailed. It's got a lot more detail on it than we have in this presentation. So you can use this QR code if you like to download it, or I'll share it in our follow-up email as well. You can grab a copy there. And that's it for today for the presentations. Thank you again for everyone for joining us, and thank you, Rob, for coming aboard the webinar today. This is a few places you can find us. There's email, there's LinkedIn. As I said, motherboard.com are an amazing Projectworks partner as well. So if you want to find out more about Projectworks, you can reach out to us, or you can, of course, reach out to Motherboard as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Alison. It's been fun, and thank you for the invite. Just wondered if perhaps there are any questions. See if the gallery has anything they would like to ask.
We've had one come through here. So someone is asking, how do you make time tracking not feel like micromanagement? We are getting pushback from the team after implementing it, and they are worried that we are breathing down their necks. That's a really interesting question. Would you like to start, Rob, or shall I?
Yeah, I can dive in. It's a great question, and I think it's something that people struggle with. The perception of time tracking being that big brother. And I think there's two things from my side and what we've seen that people do that implements it successfully. I think number one is how you track time and how granular you get. If you don't time track currently, going from 0 to 100% accurate is not feasible. So I think do it incrementally. And what I mean by that is if you track time and you say, I want to know when you're doing project work versus admin tasks versus meetings, that's like very high level. And people are like, okay, you're not, as opposed to very granular where you're saying, I want to know how long you were in the bathroom, which is very micromanaging. So I think a decision at a company level needs to be made to say, what level of granularity do we need in order to get the insights and reporting that we need? And don't take it beyond that, because that's when it can seem like you are tracking my every movement every time or every minute of every day. The second thing that we do internally with our time tracking is we have monthly meetings with the team where we go through all the time that's logged, and we've set a target of billable time. So like we celebrate when we hit that, and then we move the target up. But also the discussions around it are always around how do we remove blockers why are we spending so much time as a team on this type of like admin tasks, as an example? And then the discussion is, how do we reduce that? How do we remove things from your plate to make you more efficient? And I think those discussions immediately let people know that it's not a, where were you on this day at this time? Why weren't you at your desk sort of discussions? It's more, how do we as a management and leadership team make you be as efficient as possible, removing the things that you shouldn't be working on, essentially. So I think those are two good tips. So yeah, great question. I don't know if there's anything you would add to that, Alison.
Yeah, I mean, great answer. All I would also add is that there is a more positive culture that you can build around time tracking, and I think you frame it not just as, what are you working on, but also I think how it works in reverse, in that, like, how can we make sure you're not being overworked? How can we see where you're spending time that you shouldn't, when something is taking longer than we had estimated, and we want to be able to estimate it correctly next time, or forecast things correctly next time. I think when you can, yeah, put it back on the individual in a more trusting way, to say that it's not a micromanaging thing, that we're trying to understand where you spend every minute of your time. It's more to help you, us and the company, be honest about how long things take, so that we can forecast and estimate budgets, and tracking everything correctly, in order to hopefully, yeah, reduce people's stress, and reduce any level of overutilization or over allocation of work. There's, yeah, huge benefit on the individuals for that. And I think, yeah, if you can frame the culture of time tracking more in that space, I think it becomes a much more positive conversation.
Amazing. Yeah, agreed. We do have another question. So
Yes.
who owns resource management typically in these organizations? Sometimes it's the project manager, other times it's finance, and then it could also be the COO. Does it matter? And what impact does it have based on who owns that function or task?
All right. Shall I dive in on this one?
Yeah, you go first. You go first.
I think it's really hard to say. I think it's very different in like in lots of organizations. We've worked with so many different types of consultancies, and they're all a little bit different. They're all a little bit individual. So yes, it can land on into a lot of different buckets. Sometimes consultancies will have a team that's focused, or a person that's focused on resourcing or on delivery, it's for them to own, yeah, capacity planning and utilization and resourcing. um but I wouldn't think it matters too much, with the impact it has. It doesn't really have that much of an impact, I think, whether who owns it, as long as it's done consistently. I think ownership is really just about consistency in my mind. So whoever's doing it, as long as it's a consistent conversation and it doesn't change all the time, that's probably a big plus. But what do you think, Rob? I'm
Agreed.
curious.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I think the key point is ownership. As soon as there's too many cooks, you know, the story.
Hmm.
So as long as there's one person responsible at the end of the day who takes ownership of it, I don't think it matters really who that is within the organization. I think a key point is that there's a number of different levels or a number of different roles mentioned in there. You've got project management, finance, operations. I think the key point of it is that it's owned so that it gets done efficiently and effectively. But what's important is that all those different roles have the level of visibility into resourcing that they can all make decisions around their role. So I spoke about the finance piece, the operations piece. If everyone has that visibility, that's, I think, what the key is, not necessarily specifically who owns it.
Yes, good point. Very good point.
Cool.
All right. Any more questions? We'll give it a second. No. All right. I think we can finish up there. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got inspired, like we wanted you to. Hope you took away some practical tips, like we also wanted you to. Thank you, Rob, for joining this webinar and being amazing at presenting about resourcing for 2026 and beyond. And anyone who wants to get in touch, let us know, and we'll send the recording out as a follow-up. So other than that,
Yeah.
thanks again.
Thank you,
Have a good
Alison.
day.
Thanks so much. Chat soon. Take care.
Bye now.